Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is LJ Winters, or Larry Winter. He is an author and a leader in the field of mental health. He is both an author and a leader in the mental health, and her area of expertise is teaching people how to recover from severe depression, anxiety, physical and emotional abuse, addiction, and trauma. He's lived his own experience with mental health condition and has given invaluable insight into what works. So the book that he has written is Be Bold, Be Perfect, Be Present, and Recover, Superhuman Being, which we all are if we allow ourselves to be. So it's a commitment at 30 years old to feeling better. Recovering is helping him to heal from childhood physical and emotional abuse, living with a parent that's suffered from bipolar disorder and his own suicide ideation and eating disorder. He is uniquely qualified to guide others through the journey of healing after decades-long career in social work, and he is now a certified peer specialist who specializes in weekly peer support groups. We are seeing more depression today than we ever have. We are seeing more people anxious, and I feel so much of what's going on is saturation from the outside and not enough being able to the ability to go on the inside and find that healing. I think people are just kind of discombobulated, disconnected, a lot of trauma that they're not dealing with, and simply there's so much information on how to go through it, but they're saturated and they don't know how to find that one book, that one person that's going to help them on their own path of healing. So this is very apropos right now. We really do need a lot more people who can help with the healing. So welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here.
I always say the best teachers are those that have gone through it. So you understand trauma. Obviously, living with a mum with bipolar, you never know what you're going to get from one moment to the next. Has she taken her meds? Who is she today? As a child, that's got to be extremely confusing. Very often you wonder, is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? And then you get the wrath of when she's on the other side of it. Is this where for you your trauma started?
Yes, as a child and experiencing the connection that I had with my mom, one of the things that I learned is that my mother did not hold me for the first 3 years of my life.
Wow. Wow.
And subsequent to that, years later, learned how much of an impact that can have
Mm,
on a person's ability to emotionally attach.
yeah.
And that's where emotional attachments have always been a challenge for me.
Hmm.
Now, with my mom and what I experienced there was um, I first tried to, I did take it all on.
Yeah.
It's like, there's something wrong with me. It's my
Hmm.
fault. If I just be a good kid, mom will be all right. Then I became the kid that was going to try to fix mom.
Yeah.
Okay. And when that didn't happen, there was just this loneliness inside
Mm.
as a child. And subsequent, that traveled into my adult life because of that relationship, uh, the dynamic between my mother and I.
We don't realize, and this is something I think that's becoming more and more relevant today, is that an injured child will be an injured adult. And that there are so many people that are not addressing their inner child, whether it's trauma or neglect, all trauma, even neglect is that, but that inner child is just asking to be heard, to be nourished. And when we heal that inner child, it helps us as adults navigate through life so much better. But half the time we don't realize that's where the wound really is.
Mhm. And that is exactly been my experience, my own individual experience with it, is that I carried that wound with me. And the way in which I carried it with me was one, I became an overachiever.
Ah, hmm.
I was good in school. I was a basketball athlete. Um, as I got into my career, I worked my way all the way up to a director leading a agency of over 100 people.
Hmm.
And so with each of those situations, I thought, well, it will fill what's missing.
Yes. Or are
And
you proud of me now? Right.
exactly,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And of course, it did not.
No.
And it would be this always constantly looking for that.
Hmm.
And finally, for me, it was a matter of I got tired. I got tired
Yeah.
of not being who I was meant to be. And I decided that it was time to let go.
Mm. I call that the nudge, nudge, wink, wink before the cosmic two by four, and very often we don't pay attention to those little signs because we don't recognize them or too busy saturated with achievement or chasing something. But our inner selves and the essence of our being is constantly talking to us. But we haven't been taught as human beings how to listen in, how to listen to our divine presence, our heart, our spirit, our soul, which has intellects all of their own. We're just conditioned to this brain and mind intellect as being superior. And that's not really where the superiority is it? Because if we deny the rest of us, that's when we're discombobulated and disconnected.
Superhuman being, be bold.
Mm,
Is one of the parts of the chapter of my book. And one of the things that I talk about is when I say be bold, I'm talking about courage.
mm,
And that courage is to go within and take a look at that. When we started earlier, you talked about how we look for that next book or we
mm,
look for the next guru or whatever that might be for
yeah.
us in our lives, right? And one of the things that I do as a peer specialist is help people understand that the answers
Mm,
are in you.
yeah.
They are in you. And what works for me might
Mm,
not necessarily be the same thing that works for you,
yes.
but find people who are going to support you in your work to look at what's going on inside and how to help you learn about yourself, how to help yourself heal and really find purpose and meaning in your life.
Mm. All people that have shared their journey, because the best teachers are those that have gone through it. And you're sharing your journey, you're sharing your courage, your strength, your abilities, your how, your why, your because. And when somebody reads or hears about that and resonates with it, that means you're open to hear how they did it. But it's then how do you, as I will say with these shows, listen, learn, and apply. How do you then apply it that's unique to you? It isn't carbon copying, right? It isn't becoming that person. It's taking what worked for them and applying it to your own unique self. And the reason why you're doing it is because there is a resonance. You do feel that this person is speaking to you. So therefore there's that connection. And then how do I open that door? People like yourself with books and your guidance, you're there to show people the path. They've got to walk it, right? We've all got to realize we need to participate in our own healing. It's not somebody waving a magic wand.
And that is so important uh, when I am working with people and supporting them because it was what was very beneficial to me and my support when I had someone that was helping me say, you know, it's not about what's out here.
Mm,
It's not about what happened. It's about recognizing what I can do about it now
yes.
because I'm no longer at that spot or at that
Mm,
place. I'm not a victim.
mm,
I was created to be a human being, and I was created to be
yes.
superhuman.
Hmm.
And I was learning what it meant to work and develop self-worth.
Yeah. Yep, yep.
without it being some type of career achievement, some
Right.
type of academic achievement,
Yes.
some type of feedback that I was always looking for from my mom and dad. I never
Mm,
got. So then it turned out that as I got older, I was looking for that same thing. And when I
mm.
didn't get it, then there was something wrong for me, and I took it personal.
Yes, yes, yes. And that lack of self-worth, or, you know, my mum used to say to me, and it took me years really to actually get what you were saying, the value you put on yourself is the value people would take you for. Right. And, you know, I always felt, well, my value, what is my value? And kind of condition dollars and cents and how useful are you to someone else? And really that value is the essence of who you are as a beautiful human being, how you resonate out, your frequency of contribution, sharing, kindness, love, being. That is really the e-commerce of who you really are. And that, you know, took me a while to actually understand that was my value, because I was always comparing my value to those that were financially successful or more popular. And we chase that, and then it leaves us feeling lacking. And we're not lacking. We have abundance inside of us, enrichment inside of us waiting to come out. So if we could stop chasing the carrot, we would find it within.
And that is exactly where the work is.
Mm,
And what can be difficult about that is the people whom you interact with and support. And oftentimes it's families.
mhm,
And just to give you an example, whenever I would go within and really explore who I'm meant to be and how I'm meant to be and why I'm doing what I'm doing, my family always wanted to bring me back
yeah.
to where I was.
Mhm,
And there was this push-pull
mhm,
that was going on. And I have to say one of those two of those individuals were my parents.
mhm.
So I had a 10-year period of time in my life where I did not have any contact with my parents.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Mhm,
had to do that for
mhm.
my healing.
Yes.
I had to, because I couldn't, I was too vulnerable.
Mm,
I didn't have the wherewithal and developed yet the boundaries
mhm.
over my emotions. And so that was a very important step, in my recovery that I had
Yeah.
to take.
You know, I say this all the time is that, you know, if we want to recover, we have to look at whom we've got around us. And if they don't have our best interests at heart, through no fault of their own, they're trapped where they're trapped, right? It's, it's okay to walk away from people, but I know it's hard when it comes to family. And you think some friends that, you know, oh, the best friend, they'll be with me, and they see you moving on where they haven't, and
Yeah.
then, you know, they kind of turn against you. But you've got to understand you have to be your best friend. You have to be your own parent. You have to be that inner child and listen. And that journey that you take, if you have to shut down people around you, then do it. And when you do come out as your own beautiful self, your own superhuman essence of self, they will either see and feel you and be inspired by you, or they'll be resentful of you because they know at the back of the mind they need to take the journey, but they're
Hmm.
unwilling to do so. And you have to be willing to sever people. Don't stay because you don't want to offend a family member. You've got to understand you as a human being on this planet, if you're contributing sorrow and pain, that's not serving anyone. When you're contributing joy and meaningful purpose, that essence will serve everyone.
And I think too, as I looked at my path, I was not perfect with it, and I
Mm.
still sometimes um, fall back.
Hmm.
Okay, uh, and so that's why I talk about, because a lot of the people that I support, and especially through the support group, always talk about, well, I've got to do this,
Mm.
and it's always trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
And part of the superhuman being is being imperfect. I mean,
Yes.
that
Yes.
that that you brought to take. And like I said, I have fallen back. I can say that, you know, my father is still alive, and he's one of the individuals I talk a lot about in my book, along with
Hmm.
my mother, who's now deceased. But with my dad, sometimes I still fall back.
Yes.
But the difference now is I have an internal, I don't want to say,
Compass.
yeah, I check it like a stoplight, as I
Yeah.
call it, that goes off,
Yeah.
and I catch myself, and then I get back on track. So
Yeah.
that's important for people in recovery, people that are supporting people in recovery, to know that it's not a perfect journey.
But what is perfection? There are perfect moments in time, but life isn't meant to be perfect because life is about discovery. Life is about wonderment, exploration. And, the perfection lies in those moments, those special moments. And that's why they're so perfect. If everything was perfect all the time, we'd become complacent.
Mhm,
So, with those special moments that become so dear to you. And as far as looking back, when I've got family members that don't see me for who I am. They see me for who I was, or they what I mean to them in their light, not who I am now. And we have to accept that and understand around them. Sometimes we have to be flexible and bend a little bit without crossing our own boundary. But we don't lose ourselves. What we're doing is that they're not ready to see us. Maybe they never will be. Maybe one day they will if they're willing to take their own journey. But it's okay to bend a bit and to communicate with them on their channel. It doesn't mean you're losing yourself. It's always an, okay, now I come back to me. But we can keep loved ones in our lives and understand they're not where we're at because they haven't taken the journey. And as long as it's not abusive, we can be with them on a level where we can still have joy,
mhm.
but just don't expect them to see you who you are because they have to have risen themselves to truly understand that. And if they're not there, then they're not going to get it.
You're right on. And I think the thing about it is that um, is to recognize that. I
Yeah.
know that when I recognize it and I apply it,
Mhm.
there's just this joy that I feel inside of myself,
Yeah.
even in when there's been some tension
Hmm.
in my interactions with people, whether it's my family or past friends or past coworkers, whatever that is. There is such joy
Hmm.
in being able to know, okay, I don't have to act like this anymore.
No.
I can, I know my self-worth. I know who I am.
Yes. And you know your boundaries.
And I can say no. I
Yes.
can say no.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Without guilt.
Yes, yes.
Right. And that's important. And in the saying of no, it's done with a very, not an aggressive, but a very firm full stop, right? Where people know it's a no, right? And then they will get to know the boundaries of how to interact with you because they know when they're pushing too far. And there will always be those that will try and push every button,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
spend as limited amount of time with them as you possibly can. But
Yeah.
but if we're stepped into our own superhuman being, which I'm so glad you added the being on it, because there's the human and there's the beingness, and it's when the super is when we become that one. When we come from that space, it's not about arrogance or ego. It's about really truly understanding who we are, our contribution and our gift to the collective, and standing tall in who we are, right? And that's something to be proud of, which I think a lot of times we talk about ego, and ego can get in the way. Ego could be so damning and so destroying because if ego is constantly seeking that approval, right? That look at me, I've achieved, but you're empty inside. But that self pride of like, look how far I've come. I'm so proud of myself for taking this journey. It's a different type of vibe, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you were talking there, what came to my mind too is not only ego gets in the way, but our pride gets in the way
Yes. Yes.
when that happens. And, one of the things that you mentioned a little bit before was um, this this concept of um, why, in society do we have the challenges that we do right now from a mental health standpoint, an emotional standpoint.
Hmm.
I have a theory,
Hmm.
and that theory is we are so into looking to find something or someone outside of ourselves
Hmm.
all the time. And so
Hmm.
we're always trying to measure up,
Hmm.
right? And there's a certain ego and pride in
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
Is there not?
Yes. How many likes do I have? How many followers do I have? How rich am I? How popular am I? How sexy am I? All of this. It's all an outside illusion. Because
It-
if you're poor on the inside, nothing on the outside will ever be enough. It will never satisfy you. The
Mhm,
true enrichment and abundance comes from within. But we need to chase that carrot, right?
mhm,
To realize that we're empty and to realize that we've been living up to societal's dictation and expectation, which is a facade. It's almost a form of control.
mhm,
Keep human beings chasing and wanting more, and they're not going to go in and do the journey and realize that society is broken, the system is broken, and that we need to reconfigure. The powers that be do not want us that way. Certainly, pharma doesn't want because let's give you another drug. Governments and many other organizations, religious ones, etc., do not want you to be at one with self because
mhm.
now you can make up your own choices. You aren't sheeple anymore.
I appreciate that you brought up the point about drugs,
Mm,
okay, pharmaceutical. One of the things with my mother, so she was diagnosed with bipolar, and with her bipolar diagnosis, back then, the only thing that they really had available was Valium.
right.
That's what they gave everybody.
Yeah.
Then in the early 70s, lithium came out,
Mm,
and uh, my mother uh, began to take lithium. And my father and I agree that it most likely was the help she needed in order to stay in the community, to be
mm,
able to stay at home with us and to be
mm,
a part of it. She still had several hospitalizations as a result of it. Um, but one of the things that I recognized was my middle 20s to about age 30 that I was doing therapies and I was working and I just could not get through it.
yeah.
Uh, so I began to take some medicines that have helped me,
Hmm.
and then they help me today.
Yes.
And so I also wanted to make sure that people understand that there's a balance here.
Exactly.
There's a balance
Exactly.
here. It's
Hmm.
not going to solve everything
Hmm.
because I know individuals who do the medications and sure they get some help from it and they think they're good enough, but they haven't done the cognitive work. They haven't
Hmm.
done
Hmm.
look at the change process, how their behavior is affecting
Hmm.
what's going on, doing things like consuming a lot of alcohol
Hmm.
and drugs. So I think it's important to mention
Yes.
that can be a part of, but is not the total solution, nor is it the
Yeah.
total solution for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. I hear you. I've suffered from depression all my life, and a lot of it is empathic depression. And when you're in that state, it's a feeling of despair. You can't snap out of it. There's no logic reason. Your brain can go into all sorts of rationale, but that feeling feels like somebody's gone in and just ripped your heart and gut right out. And at that time, you do need help. And I found something, actually Prozac, very, very low dose of it, because I can't take high stuff because that, for me, sends me spiraling. Um, and I would take it when I felt the rabbit hole opening up. And I'd take it for about a week, and that's all I needed. And then I'd be back in my equilibrium again. And I actually haven't taken it in God knows how long, because I am more in my
Good for you.
equilibrium and I recognize where the rabbit hole is showing over there. I don't want to go over there. And you learn, to manage yourself and what is it that helps you? Music helps me, switching off to demands and just maybe looking at happy things. It's you find your path. But yes, there are those times where you need that help. Where I'm against the pharmaceutical, instead of giving the therapy or the support or the journey from the inner child out, it's a pill. And very often it's a dumb-down pill to keep you on the pills or
Hmm.
on the treatment, rather than you really looking at it being as an assistance to your journey of self-discovery.
Correct. And for example, like myself, I've tried to go off medication 3 different times.
Hmm.
And I look at my recovery experience totality, and it just doesn't work for me.
Right,
So, I take an amount that works for me
exactly.
and helps
But
me.
you've additionally done the work. You didn't just rely on the pills and that's that. You
Correct.
use them as an assistance for you to do the work.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's so important,
Mm,
I think, for people to know and to
mm.
be aware of, because I think there's so many people, Sarah, that when they get the pill, they don't see the benefit of doing
Yeah,
something additional to that.
yeah,
And it can what you're eating, your
yes.
exercise,
Your
what your spirituality.
your dialogue with yourself,
Yep.
right? All of that. I mean, we have to really look at how do we talk to ourselves,
Hmm.
right? Oh, you're a loser. You know, nobody's ever going to love you. Da 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 da. Whoa, change that dialogue. Catch yourself. You know, the old rubber band trick, right?
Yes.
Catch yourself and re-speak or rewrite those words, because that is something you're telling your psyche and your being. And if you keep telling yourself you're unworthy, it's going to think you're unworthy. So when you start talking to your worthiness, I'm so much more than I am wondrous, this, that, etc. You start to lift yourself up and see yourself through different lenses. But the diet of our words, never mind the diet of our food and the diet of our environment, toxic environment, all needs to be really examined, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where it's very important, because I believe for healing to happen, you have to take a holistic approach
Yeah.
to your care, and also be open to the fact that that might change
Hmm.
as it has for me in my navigation through life. It's had to change, and I've had to have some modifications
Hmm.
accordingly. So, um, in my book, I talk about that there's no such thing as one and done.
No, no,
There's no such thing as one and done.
no,
It's
no. There's always a
going back.
discovery.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's the key to developing new
Hmm.
habits,
Hmm.
and new pathways, and how important it is for those of us that experience trauma.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is, when we talk to ourselves, are we validating
Mm.
that pathway we've created, or are we creating a new pathway in the brain
Right.
that helps us become the person we were meant to be?
Yes.
Because we know now through brain research how that can happen. And to
Hmm.
me, that is such an incredible gift
Hmm.
that we've been given, that you can actually do that.
Yes. I mean, you call us superhuman beings, and I think we've only scratched the surface of our abilities. We're only beginning now to slowly open up to what we are capable of, but who we are as a species. And, the rewiring of our brain. Quantumness has opened up spirituality, and for quantum scientists now measure the spirituality as a higher hertz, people that resonate on a higher frequency. But at the same time, you've got technology that's allowed our consciousness to grow. And when we look at being open to receive in different ways, that discovery of what is possible, that discovery of I don't care how old I am, and there's still more to see, more to do, more to be, and be open and willing to it, we really then do start scratching the surface of why we're here.
And that's when I look at the gift of what I focus my writing on.
Mm-hmm.
It's, writing each day to help validate, help support,
Mm-hmm.
my own journey of recovery, and then also being able to help and support other people uh, in their recovery journey. And I think what to me is so fascinating and, and joyful is when I'm walking alongside others that are in recovery,
Mm-hmm.
is just the uniqueness
Yeah.
of each of us as creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and how we go about making the steps, become aware of, and the beauty. But that beauty is inside of us, and and that healing is inside of us.
Yeah.
Um, and when we're supporting other people, sometimes what we tend to do is we want to give them all the things that work for us
Yeah.
and think, well, if you just do that,
Yeah.
then things will be better. So I think it's important in walking the journey with people, whether it's a family member, it's my own journey in recovery, is that it's unique
Yeah.
and it's for each person. And
And
that,
that the tool that you've used to help you may be applicable, but how that tool is used has to be unique to the person,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
I believe that inspiration begets invitation. That when somebody's inspired by someone's journey, they're inspired, and invited to kind of look at their own journey. Well, if it's possible for them, is it possible for me? And looking at those tools, I mean, a hammer, how many ways can you use it? It can build or it can destroy,
mhm,
right? And it's a question of learning how to use it where it builds you up. And you may not use that hammer in the same way, but at the same time, understanding the tool, you will then understand how to use it.
mhm. Exactly. And I look at that when you say the hammer. I had I had a few mentors in my life as I was growing up, my young adulthood into my adulthood. And they really helped me get through that time.
Mm-hmm.
They were the supports. They were there to guide me.
Mm-hmm.
They were there to point out things to
Yeah,
me, but they weren't there to fix it.
exactly.
But I've
Exactly.
also had mentors that I
Uh-huh.
thought were mentors, coupled with that were out to destroy me.
Mm, hmm. And kind of,
And
when you get people like that, it's like you may push, I'm not going to fall. Sometimes that adversity isn't there to kind of hold us back or punish us. I think it's there to also show us our own conviction and our own strength. Can I stand up against this wind? Right? How
mhm,
flexible am I? And I think that there's always going to be people that will push back. But the more sure you become in your own roots, in your own core, in your own flexibility of your own branches, they may push, but you will not crumble.
mhm. And my father was extremely abusive toward me,
Hmm.
physically and sexually.
Oh, that's a hard one to go overcome.
And we journeyed together here in our
Mm,
lives. My dad, he's 85 now. Um, we have been in a relationship. I had said I took a 10-year break from my
hmm.
parents. But for the last 15, 20 years, about, we've been in relationship together. And I have had to work through my ambivalence and
Yeah.
my anger. And up until 5 years ago, which was about the time I started my writing of the book, um, I still had that ambivalence and that anger towards him. And through the 12-step program that I follow, I learned, okay, I need to forgive.
Yes.
I need to let go
Mhm.
because it's healthier for me.
It's eating you up. You know,
Yes,
the forgiving is releasing you. Mm.
yes. Because it was actually causing physical issues for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
And writing was the way that I did it. And actually, each chapter, I sat down with my father and read it to him because I wanted to make sure, is this how you saw it? Is this how I
Hmm.
see it? Because a lot of some people will say, boy, you're very raw in your
Hmm.
writing and you were very like truthful and just putting
Hmm.
it out there.
Which
And
is
I
the only way
said,
to be. Yeah.
yeah, I said, but that's the way I wanted it to be because I'm
Yeah.
not going to protect anybody.
Right.
That isn't giving people a clear and acceptable picture of the situation. What I'm so pleased about is that I have forgiven him. I
Hmm.
have let it go. And he's in assisted living now.
Hmm.
And I help him,
Hmm.
despite all the stuff that's gone on. I knew that for me, I had to forgive. And the reason I say that is some of the people that I work with, I should say a high percentage of them, they get stuck in not being able to forgive the
Yeah.
people who harmed them.
Hmm.
It's hard for them to forgive. It's hard for them to let go of the anger and the ambivalence they have towards the individual.
Yeah.
And for me, it took me to another level in my healing.
The other thing is in understanding without condoning what he did was wrong, full stop, but understanding where he was coming from and what he did. People don't set out, I don't think, to harm their children, but they're caught in an old pattern of abuse themselves, and they do, you know, what they know, even if they're maybe not consciously doing it. And I think that we don't condone the act. That's something for them to own. But by forgiving and understanding from where they come from, right? But they may never be willing to take the journey to heal themselves, but there's a healingness in you accepting where they came from and understanding that it wasn't all about just to get you. It was a pattern and a torment within themselves that they took out on you. That's what they have to own, right? But by you releasing it, by you forgiving it, is also letting go of the fact that it was directed all about me. And really, it was about them imposing it upon you.
Well, there's two things about that. You're right, because can you imagine here is a young dad who his wife is diagnosed with
Mm-hmm.
bipolar, doesn't embrace their baby, their child,
Mm-hmm.
for the first 3 years of life. He's got all the stress of trying to keep the family going, working, and doing all the other things that he had to do. And there was a lot of pressure on him during his early 20s
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to that I got to.
Yes.
I think they'd call that empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that being an important component of it.
Yeah. Again, we may not condone the actions. It's not, the actions they have to own. They did it. It caused harm. That's the fact of it. But the forgiveness or the acceptance of where they were at, at doing it, as I said, it does release the burden of ourselves. I mean, not holding a child. I've got two grandchildren that, are glued to me. Then love being hugged and kissed and devoured by grandma. And my kids were the same way. Of course, they don't remember that as kids, right? But now watching me with the grandkids, they realize that's how they were brought up. And that physical interaction with your children is a part of their nectar. It's a part of feeding them. And for your father to do what he did sexually, the fact that he never held you, he never made that connection. He never bonded in that way. So in a lot of ways, he didn't see you. You were the son, technically, but there was no the bonding of the son, right? So he saw you in a different way, so therefore did not look to protect in the way that he should have.
Yeah, the just clarification. So it was my mom that didn't hold me for the first 3 years. My dad actually was.
Oh, good.
Yes,
All right.
he would hold me. He'd place me on his tummy, whatever. But the one thing that you also said that's important, I think, is when I forgave and wanted to move on, that was for me. I didn't expect my father to say
Mm,
he was sorry.
yeah.
And I
You
think
let go of the need of that. Yeah.
that's where, yeah, that's
Hmm.
because oftentimes people too think, well, they never said they're sorry, so
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
guess I'm not going to forgive them.
Right.
Well, it's for us,
Yes.
me,
Yes. Yes.
to be able to do that so that I can heal from what was going on. The other thing that is so prevalent, and you were talking about your grandchildren,
Hmm.
is when they talk about trauma and how do we heal from trauma? Well, it's about connection
Hmm.
with other human beings and support.
Yes.
But having those connections and support is what helps people. It's a
And
big,
never
big
ever
part.
underestimate a hug,
Mhm,
right? A hug is heart to heart, is essence to essence. It is so feeding and so nourishing and can heal that inner child. It can just help have someone feel I'm held. I'm held. And
mhm,
very often when we're battling this path of past abuse, neglect, or whatever journey we're on and trying to find our worthiness, we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, and we don't feel held. So, seeing someone, listening to them and hugging them is like, I see, hear, and feel you.
mhm. And we're connected. Our
Yeah.
creator made that connection for us. That's why um, we're not made to be alone.
No,
We're
we're
made
not.
to be in isolation. And we need that.
Yes.
I think of I can't remember the name of the movie, but Tom Hanks was in it, and he his airplane crashed.
Castaway?
Yes,
With
yes,
Wilson, the ball?
yes,
Yes.
yes. How
Yeah.
he took a volleyball
Yeah.
and made it his friend Wilson
Hmm.
because there he was a significant amount of time he was alone
Yes.
and was a way for him to be connected.
And
That
everything
helped
has an
him.
energy signature.
Yeah.
Innate objects have energy signatures, right? So you can make anything alive. And I don't know if you've ever seen the wonderful documentary Judi Dench on trees,
No, I
but the
haven't.
view are really wonderful if you ever get a chance to do it. BBC England did it, and if there's every way you can get it. But the beautiful thing is in the filming of it, they filmed the fiber optics of the trees and how they connect with one another. And they don't care if you're a willow or an oak, or whether you're old or you're young, or whether you've fallen or you're standing tall. They all connect and support one another. All living things have these fiber optics that reach out and connect. As human beings, we're meant to be that forest of connection. We have fiber optics in our body that makes our bodies move, but we also have it in our essence and in our heart and soul that pushes us forward. And if we're not feeling that connection, this is why that disconnect is there and that causes more harm. We need to be that forest of connection again and not judge each other for which tree we are or what color we are or anything else, and just connect to each other's heart and soul and essence.
And that is the essence of healing.
Hmm.
It's the things that I'm trying to do in my support of individuals like myself and those that support people.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes nothing more than the ability to be able to listen
Yes.
without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
but making a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's especially important for people who support people
Yeah.
with these conditions, mental health conditions or addiction, trauma, is that ability to be able to listen and not necessarily needing to offer advice or solutions. Now, certainly if it's asked of them, they
Be
should do that.
present with them.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what people will ask me, they'll ask me, well, what do I need to do to support people? And I said, listen and connect with your heart
Mm-hmm.
and then let it evolve,
Yeah.
let it go, and help them find who they are,
Yeah.
the essence of
Exactly.
their uniqueness, just like every tree is unique.
Yes, exactly. Every single thing that we have, even innate objects, has an energy signature, and they've missed their energy signature. And all they're needing is to be kind of ignited, switch back on again in
Hmm.
order to kind of feel it. We have become a human society of throwaway people. And, when you look back on history, how many, my grandson yesterday had an ear infection and was really upset and crying. And we managed to get him to the doctors and get the antibiotics and the painkillers and all of that. Back in the day, they didn't have that. How many people actually reached adulthood because of all the, obstacles in the word childbirth, growing up with all sorts of things. And it was a miracle to actually reach adulthood. And then
Hmm.
what we do as human beings, we send them to war to die. And I felt that for so long, human beings have been living to die and not living to live.
Mm, mm.
We need to change that thinking, that paradigm. Life is precious. Everything that we learn in every moment of every day, we then become that gift that that universe is looking us to be. But if we're in this mindset that we're disposable and that death is nothing to be afraid of, because all we're doing is our spirit is going on, but rushing towards death as some sort of honor or just disposable is what is wrong. And I feel this is where the heart of humanity is feeling so disconnected because they don't feel, does anyone care if I live or die?
How did we get here is the
Mm,
question.
hmm. Yeah,
How did we get here?
yeah, yeah. I'm going to do a shameless plug here there because I put together an anthology of people, talking about how we got here, and it's called Our Forgotten Children. And it is about the systems that are broken. And the whole each person contributed, whether they're a teacher, a parent, or work with parents or autistic supporters. It's all about where we're going wrong in the raising of our children. And the systems are broken. The children aren't, the systems are broken in which we raise them in. They're born with a beautiful spirit and essence, and we send them to school to conform and to fit into a box and a narrative that does not work. It's against the very essence of who they are. And they grow up disconnected adults that then have huge problems and violence comes out. And we see more and more of that. We need to get down to the root cause of it. And that is supportive of families, supportive of the children, listening to our children and the gift that they are and keeping that light on inside of them. And then we won't see so much disconnection. But we have a broken system throughout the world right now. We need to relook at our values of ourselves, our contribution, us as a humanity, how we come together, how we support one another. That's the only way I believe we're going to heal.
And that is the essence of what I think is the continuum of mental health.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah.
Is, mental health, mental wellness, as I call it, mental
Hmm.
wellness. And on the other end is mental illness. And all of us land somewhere on that continuum. Many,
And that continuum needs to come to an end. We need to recognize this is why this particular show is called Mental Health Awareness, right? It's not about wallowing in the trauma that we've had. It's about how do we support each other out of the trauma and how do we stop the traumas in the first place?
hmm hmm because it is, you were speaking about how my dad learned it from
Mm.
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
when I was writing the book and we were having a discussion, I asked my dad about his own childhood. And what he said was that his father used to abuse him
Yeah, of course.
physically
Yes.
and caused a lot of harm.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times I noticed that my dad was ambivalent towards my grandfather.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
More than less, I'm sure my grandfather was probably taken out to the woodshed by
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
father,
Yeah.
and there's that
Constant repeat pattern.
yeah, the
Um, yes.
historical trauma is what
Yes.
they call it.
Yes.
Historical
DNA
trauma.
trauma is even born in your DNA, right? Before you even know what you're feeling traumatized about, it's in there as a
Mhm,
signature. And we
mhm,
need to recognize, is this my trauma? Am I carrying somebody else's trauma with me? And how do I release that? Um, this is why, this book was so important for me to put out because if we don't recognize the patterning, the programming, and if we're not willing to change that programming, we're just going to constantly keep seeing a repeat of this.
mhm.
And, you talked about sex trafficking and sexual abuse. Back in 2016, I did a show on sex trafficking. And this is only what they know. This is not deep dark web. At that time, it was $150 billion a year industry. If we're not looking at sexual deviancy as a disease and a pandemic of its own, and we're not going after why this sexual prowess is so prevalent, then we're not looking at the healing. We're band-aiding. We're
Mhm,
ignoring. It's not a subject people want to talk about.
mhm,
And especially, it's more heinous when a family member does it to their own child. But
mhm.
again, if it's something that was done to them, even though they probably grew up and go, I never want to do that to my own child, but they fall into that pattern, is because it hasn't been dealt with. And there's a lot of issues that we need to look at as being the root cause of our depression and anxiety and disconnection as a whole, as a human race. And we need to pull up our socks and go, no more. We need to change this.
Well, interesting you talk about changing the cycle or the pattern. As I was growing up, I I did not have the urge to repeat that pattern
Yeah.
in regards to physical abuse. The thing though that happened for me is I went to the other extreme. I took it out on myself.
Yes. Self persecution. Yeah.
So I beat
Mm,
myself up. I,
hmm
personalized things. That's where my eating disorder
hmm
comes in. So I refused to hurt anybody,
Right.
but it was okay for me, and I learned how
Yeah.
to hurt myself
Yeah.
for a long
And
time.
you were still hurting somebody.
Yeah,
It was you.
yeah, it was me.
Yes. And that
Yeah,
comes back to your worthiness is, well, I can't be worth anything, so it's okay if I hurt myself. Right.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I took it out on myself.
Yeah.
Um, I over exercised. Um, again, it goes back to achievement. Some things
Yes.
I've said earlier,
Yeah.
but that's what I did. And I always caution people is that if you're with somebody and they're the type of person that I want to say lashes out or is a little more violent and shows it, they're less. This is a general statement. They're less person that's probably going to be suicidal.
Mm.
However, the person that takes it out on
Yes.
themselves and internalize it,
Yeah, and are quiet.
okay, are
Mm.
quiet, are more likely or higher risk to commit suicide.
And
So
I have
being
a theory on that too, is that I think that so many people, if you were to go the other side and interview them, 98% of them saying, I didn't want to die, I just wanted to stop the pain,
exactly, I wanted to
right?
feel,
Yes.
I wanted to feel.
Yeah. And because we see this all the time and you go, but why? Why? I didn't see any evidence of it, and that's the trouble because people in that kind of depression very often hide it with humor, hide it with this, that, etc. And again, that despair that I talked about earlier is turmoiling in their stomach, and it just becomes a point where it's just too much and they can't take it anymore.
Exactly. And in the midst of my pain, I had a therapist when I talked about I had thoughts of harming myself.
Hmm.
And what he said to me was, remember, they're just thoughts.
Yes.
The thoughts come and go. They're
Yeah.
not feelings. It's
You
not a
don't have
feeling.
to, yeah, you don't have to take it to the next step, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that helped me.
Mm,
That helped
yeah.
me in different situations.
And that's what I was saying earlier, those negative thoughts. It's now, they say it takes eight positives to undo one negative.
Hmm.
So, that's when it's then speak to the possibilities, to who the light and love of who you are,
Hmm.
override that dialogue with a positive dialogue. And eventually the brain catches on, right? And it realizes when the negative comes up, you catch yourself. And then to affirm with something better. And you
Hmm.
start changing that dialogue. But it's taking that dialogue into action that we don't want to see, but understanding all negative thoughts are going to come. I'm going to go, why are you there? Pissed off about something? Okay, get it off your chest, let it go.
And that's the real key is that that's a dialogue that we have with ourselves.
Hmm.
Okay. And that's where it comes from. It's not something, and that can change. We can have an impact on that.
Yeah.
It's not coming from somewhere outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
Okay. Maybe it's was born there,
Yeah.
but it's no longer there.
Right.
And
Right.
and how do we now look at that for ourselves and refill ourselves in a
Hmm.
way, that supports recovery and healing?
Why the title Superhuman Being?
Because there's so much glorification
Mm.
of athletes and actors and
Yeah.
performers and all those type of celebrities. And superhuman being is about self-worth,
Mm.
that you are just as worthy as any other person in society.
Hmm.
And know that when you're bold and you are take the courage to take the leap and step forward, you're super and you're a
Yeah.
superhuman being
Yeah.
when you do that.
Yeah. And again, I'm so glad you didn't just put superhuman, because then that's humanoid, that you
Hmm.
incorporated the being of our beingness, our essence, our spirit, our soul. Um, because when we step into the beingness, then we have a better understanding of our humanness. It's that
Exactly.
disconnect between our beingness and our human that, we become humanoid and caught up in fears and scarcity and everything else as a human. When we're in the beingness, we're in that abundance and that possibility and that light, and it all always devour the dark.
Hmm.
But the whole thing again about darkness, light and dark has its, it was 8 years stuck in the darkness, and seeing the light there, didn't want to come out because the light at that time was too painful for me. When I eventually came out, felt blinded by the light. I felt that the shadows were chasing me until I changed the darkness and the shadows to contouring the light, giving shape to the light. And now I can go back into that darkness. It's my peace spot because I am the light in the dark.
Mm.
Right. So it's
Oh.
important for us to understand darkness isn't out to be evil, right? Let it be your canvas where the light sheds on what it is you need to know at that time. We're the ones that make it a villain. Let's change our narrative.
we need the darkness to see the stars. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Otherwise, do we see them by day? No. Right. So everything is that contrast, isn't it? And I think
Mhm.
we're inclined to, as human beings, go to the extreme in our emotions. And all of our emotions are here for a reason. I'm angry. What am I angry at? Deal with it. Right. I'm sad. What am I sad? Deal with it. What am I enjoy? Oh, I'm doing this more often. But deal with the emotion in that moment. Don't become emotional over the emotion,
Mhm. Very well said. I like
which
that.
we like to do because we like a touch of drama, don't we?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
all the world is our stage, right? Yes, I know, but sometimes we could turn that drama down a wee bit and, probably put a little comedy in there instead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's taken you 5 years to write this book. Was that because you were kind of waiting for it to form itself, or is that because you were unraveling as you were writing?
Both actually.
Hmm.
The thing that happened for me is from the time I got to putting my thoughts on paper was probably 2 years, 2.5 years before
Hmm.
I really put it on paper. Um, so when I decided to then, to write the book, um, it things came up for me
Right.
that I realized, oh, I didn't get that all, I didn't take care of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were times when I had to put it aside because
Yes.
the thoughts, my feelings were just, it was too intense.
Yeah.
And so then I would come back to it.
Right.
And so it wasn't one where it was sitting down and within 30 days I had a book.
Right.
It took a good little over 2 years for the writing part.
But it became
Uh,
your healing because as things revealed, it gave you something to deal with, right?
exactly,
And then something to be able to address in the book productively.
exactly, exactly. And I could have people look at it, give
Mm,
me feedback,
mm,
all, and it was always really important to me as I was doing that, that I would check with myself.
mm.
Just because somebody else was giving me a particular feedback didn't mean I took it all the time.
Right.
Sometimes I did, but if it was getting out of what I thought was the essence of what was inside of me,
Yeah.
then it wasn't that I ignored it. It was just that it was a suggestion that wouldn't work
Yeah.
for me.
You have to prioritize what really is the core review, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And establish what is what. And that's important. It's there are a lot of people out there, that are authors now, and there's a reason for it. Just like I do the podcast to bring forth your story that's going to help someone else. Your book will help someone else. And that we have no control who listens. I have a motto, listen, learn, and apply. We have no, control who listen, who reads the book, or what happens about it. But by presenting it, by having it out there, somebody that's in search of an answer will find it. The book will fall off the bookshelf in front of them. They'll just catch this podcast at the right time. And that's the thing is we've got to understand our beingness of our superhumanness, of resonance that goes out. And when you put something out with love and compassion and healing and kindness, that resonance out there, somebody who's looking will find it. And that's the beauty of it. So, it takes courage to write the book. I did my own as well. Um, and to read back, that's the thing, right? To read
Yeah.
back, it's like,
Yes.
whoa, wow, and it can be quite intimidating at
Yeah.
times, I
Yeah.
know. But
Did I really say that?
yeah, exactly. Did I really feel that? Yeah. But it's good for us to have that reveal, for us to see ourselves, because it kind of becomes that compilation of your life so far, and it helps you in your decision making where you're moving on. So, encourage people to write, whether it's a daily blog or whether it's, to put something in a book, but to share that story. And a lot of people have been scared to write things about, sexual abuse from a parent or from anyone else. And I commend especially men, because women will talk about it more openly, but especially men that will talk about it because it's always been that macho thing. You never say anything.
Mhm.
And by you doing that, you're giving permission to the abuser because nobody will say anything. And so by speaking out is that we're saying this is not okay. And I was not okay because of it. So we do need to speak out and have each other's back. So thank you for having the courage to share that because it's very much needed, especially amongst the male population.
And I'm glad you said that, Sarah, as far as the male population.
Mm,
That is that's my hope,
yeah,
is that more and more men can come forward and talk about
yeah,
their process, their
yes.
experience. Typically, when the support groups that I do,
Hmm.
it's pretty much 75 to 90% women, which is
Mm,
fine. It's okay,
yes,
but not a lot of men. And
right.
I just hope that more men would engage in
Well, I can tell you the new sexy is actually being open and honest and vulnerable. The gift to yourself is your vulnerability, sharing that vulnerability in wholeness of self. Doesn't matter what somebody else's opinion is, that's their opinion. Don't take it on, right?
Exactly.
And standing tall in who you are. This happened to you. You didn't ask for it, it happened to you. What
Mhm.
you make out of it, you make it for you, was your choice and your journey. And we can turn anything around to happening for us, even if it is just in the empowerment of who we are, the strength, the abilities, the courage that we discover in ourselves.
Mhm. Awesome. And it is. Yeah, that's the essence of healing.
Yeah.
You just summed it up in a very, very good way. It's the essence of what the healing journey is all about.
Mhm. We've all had something to deal with, folks. And, abstaining from dealing with it, feeling ashamed about it, feeling fearful about what other people would think, you have no control of what other people would think, nor is it your business,
Right.
right? Just take care of your own, right?
Right.
Take care of your own business and be that inspiration that will be that illumination for someone else.
Precisely.
So, how do people get the book? I know you've got a few offerings here, which is wonderful, but how do people get the book? You have a free giveaway and also your site, and how can people be a part of this group?
Yes. If you want, you can go to my website, https:// superhumanbeing.net / and either that or just Google superhuman being and it'll come up. And on my site, you can actually get a free chapter of the book to get a taste for what it's about. Also, I have access to a support group that I do virtually every Thursday evening from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, that I would invite you to click on the page and you'll see a Zoom meeting and it will get you right to the meeting for that evening. And also I do a daily blog Monday through Friday, and it's about my recovery journey of other people and those who support people that are in recovery. And you can get that by signing up for that through your email, and then each day it will come to your inbox. The book itself, you can get on my website. It'll take you right to Amazon.com. I also don't know that it's available at Barnes and Noble. It's also available at Books A Million as well. So different ways. I traded. I can't hear you.
Sorry. You go by LJ Winter for the as the author on the book, not Larry.
I,
So they will find you that way as well. And all those offerings are wonderful because the more support we have, and you may just join the group and just want to listen, just be in the background. That's perfectly all right. When you're ready to talk out, you will. But the whole point is knowing that there's other people that have got you. That's what we're lacking in society is have you got me? Are your intentions real? Are you fake? Because God, how much fake news is out there? Fake
Yes.
everything else. And we just want to know that you care. And just having somebody that cares about us is already an enormous impact on our well-being. And we're all beautiful superhuman beings if only we would step in to our meaningful purpose, our beautiful instrument, and really be that essence that the world needs, because that's really, really important. And of course, you're on LinkedIn as well as Larry Winter, Superhuman Being, and on Facebook at Superhuman Being as well, so people can reach out to you there as well.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning those.
Thank you for taking this journey, and especially, for the men folk out there, women who are listening to this, please share it with the men, right? They don't need to share anything with you or what they thought about it. Just share it.
Hmm.
This whole thing of don't tell, don't step up a lip. I'm going to be less macho. No, no. By speaking to what has happened and asking for help, right? Asking for support shows how courageous and strong you're willing to be, far more than hiding it.
Well, as I've said, be bold, be present, be imperfect, and
Yes,
recover.
yes, exactly. And be imperfect. Perfection are in the moments. There is no such thing as a perfect human being.
That's
We are
correct.
meant to be flawed. That's what makes us so special,
Mhm.
right? Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing here, Larry.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me and being a part of this journey.
Absolute delight, and keep on doing your work because it's really important. And folks, as I said, women or men listening to this, share, share, share. I always encourage people to have a podcast group, whether you do it by Zoom or you do it in person. Listen to the podcast, take notes, and then share. It's your perspective, their perspective. Suddenly you've got a whole big picture. So don't be afraid to talk about it. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.